Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Many strange things happen around here.
As I've often discussed, the 1980s was a crowded market for horror cinema, a time so overrun by rip-offs and cash grabs, and rip-offs of cash grabs, that oversaturation was inevitable, and left in its wake a long list of small, low-budget midnight movies that have been pretty much forgotten by everyone but the most ardent horror movie aficionados. Unfortunately, these films are usually a little too sparse on the compelling behind-the-scenes details needed for one of my standalone retrospectives. But of course, this doesn't mean that their stories aren't worthy of being told. For many, these hidden gems are often quintessential entries in the genre, simple and unrefined B-movie terror unhindered by a big Hollywood budget and risk-averse studio oversight. Products of the Wild West filmmaking that was early contemporary independent horror. This is the story of two of those movies. One, a supernatural cyber-possession revenge story that arrived on the cusp of the Satanic Panic and fell victim to government censorship, with a cast of both well-established and up-and-coming future stars. And the other, a slow-burn desert thriller that rides the line between Hitchcockian suspense and 80s slasher shenanigans, and boasts an impressive ensemble cast that no doubt elevates the material. So grab some popcorn and candy and your beverage of choice, and step back with me into the grimy and gritty world of cult cinema filmmaking. Just don't forget to turn off your headlights.
Everyone's known a boy like Stanley Coopersmith.
Evilspeak.
He's the kid everyone used to pick on.
Screwed up for the last time, Cooper Dick.
Evilspeak.
You see, everyone felt Stanley was a joke. An outcast with no one to turn to.
You guys broke my catapult. You're gonna pay for that.
No one except man's most advanced machine. Stanley used the power of man to call on the powers of evil.
1982's techno-horror Evilspeak was co-written and helmed by first-time feature film director Eric Weston, who developed the script from a story by Joseph Garofalo, also marking Garofalo's first screenwriting credit. For funding, Weston was referred to the offices of producer Silvio Tabet, then known for a recent string of B-movies, although he went on to become the overseer of the wonderfully schlocky Beastmaster franchise. And newly minted producer Gerald Hauptman later joined the production, following up his debut film The Devil's Reign with even more satanic mayhem. At his own request, Tabet played a dual role and served as second unit director for certain scenes, and Weston later said that Tabet fancied himself a director. Although the fundamental story elements were already in place, that is, a bullied boy taking supernatural revenge on his abusers, it was Weston who suggested that they merge computer technology with demonic horror, and in a way, this made the film well ahead of its time. However, the director admittedly knew nothing about the burgeoning industry and was forced to complete extensive research. Somewhat ironically, the script itself was written on a $1,500 orange IBM electric typewriter. While Garofalo's original title was The Foundling, Weston changed it to Evilspeak as a play on the phrase computer speak, which described the complex jargon used by industry specialists. For the uninitiated, the story follows lowly cadet Stanley Coopersmith, who falls prey to bullying by both the faculty and his classmates at West Andover Military Academy. However, in the seemingly ancient school cellar, Coopersmith uncovers dark texts of devil worship belonging to the medieval satanic priest Father Esteban, and hatches a diabolical means of revenge in the form of a state-of-the-art word processor, which Esteban's spirit comes to possess. And the hapless cadet sets out to complete ritualistic rites that unleash Esteban's hellfire upon his enemies. Clint Howard, of course, not only came from one of Hollywood's most beloved family of actors, but also brought significant experience to his role as Stanley Coopersmith, a name you soon won't forget.
Coopersmith. Coopersmith.
Coopersmith. Coopersmith.
Coopersmith.
Coopersmith.
Coopersmith.
Coopersmith.
Coopersmith. Coopersmith. Coopersmith. Coopersmith. Coopersmith.
Nice game, Cooper Dick.
However, the former child actor was at first trepidatious about joining the production, its demonic imagery and bloody deaths being a far cry from his previous endeavors, which included a long string of television appearances, and had recently completed work on the teen comedy Rock and Roll High School. It is therefore somewhat ironic that Evilspeak would kick off a storied career in horror cinema for the actor. At just 22 years old, however, Howard was already struggling against a receding hairline and was forced to buy a small toupee out of pocket in order to give the character a full head of hair, an item the actor says he still has to this day. The film not only marked Howard's transition from child actor to performing for a more mature audience, but he quickly learned the difference between a low-budget independent film and a Hollywood studio-engineered production, and ended up having to perform the majority of his own stunts and wire work. Because of his impressive resume, Weston and cinematographer Irv Goodenough both involved the young actor in day-to-day decisions, and Howard says that making Evilspeak is one of the highlights of his career because it was the first time he struck out on his own as a professional. For Coopersmith's arch-nemesis, Cadet Bubba Caldwell, future That 70s Show actor Don Stark won the part. At the time, the actor was looking to step away from adolescent roles and was in fact planning a permanent move to New York when his agent called with just a day's notice to join the production. According to Clint Howard, Stark purposely avoided him on set in order to maintain the illusion of an antagonistic relationship.
Holy Christ.
Why don't you guys leave him alone?
How would you like to follow his hat?
Television star Haywood Nelson plays Kowalski, having gained notoriety on the popular 70s sitcom What's Happening. And following its 1979 cancellation, the actor found himself looking to pay his way through architect school. But like some of his co-stars, Nelson knew very little about the film going in, and was only told that it took place at a military academy. Although he ultimately came around to the idea of doing a horror film after learning of its true nature, Nelson chose to hide the details from his agent and management team. Lauren Lester had just shared the screen with star Clint Howard in Rock and Roll High School, and appears here in the smaller role of Charlie Boy. Although his role here may not be so memorable, Lester has since gone on to have a wide-ranging voice acting career, showing up in several classic Saturday morning cartoons. As for the adult cast, Weston assembled some of the finest character actors of their day, including English-American comedian Hamilton Camp as Coopersmith's stern instructor Hauptmann, here putting on some kind of German accent. And veteran actor and playwright R.G. Armstrong took on the role of Sarge, the school groundskeeper, known for his appearances in several classic westerns. While Armstrong had actually first been offered the part of Colonel Kincaid, The role eventually went to Charles Tyner, who delivers a wonderfully sadistic performance. And Clint Howard wasn't the only actor required to hide his hair loss, as Tyner too wears a hairpiece in the film. Joseph Cortez's career was just on the rise when he was cast as Reverend Jameson, and although it is one of his earlier lesser-known efforts, I'd say he really nailed the role. Funny enough, Evilspeak turned out to be the first of two 1981 computer technology-based films Cortez received billing for, the other being the TV cyber thriller Computer Side. TV and B-movie actor Claude Earl Jones said that it was the worst script he had ever read, but came to see the film as a comedy and soon after accepted the role of Coach. Lynn Hancock made her feature film debut as feisty secretary Miss Friedmeier, who suffers what is the film's most elaborate singular death scene at the hooves of ravenous pigs. Hancock won the role through an open casting call, and while the script called for nudity, Hancock was apprehensive about exposing herself on screen. And during her audition, the actor convinced the producers to forego her totally undressing for them, feeling her lingerie was seductive enough. As I'll discuss later, this scene in particular was targeted by the MPAA, resulting in significant censorship. Former champion wrestler, mob enforcer, and Godfather actor Lenny Montana plays against type as Jake, the gentle school cook who befriends Coopersmith. Montana found his way to the part after Weston had produced the 1978 ensemble comedy They Went That Away and That Away, in which Montana co-stars. Despite his illustrious resume and unforgettable screen presence, the actor struggled to remember his dialogue, and therefore he had to be filmed one line at a time. According to cast and crew, despite his reputation and intimidating 6'6" frame, Montana regaled those around him with stories from his colorful career. Future Night Court star Richard Mole brought the sinister mannerisms necessary for the religious cult leader Father Lorenzo Esteban. At the time, Mole was very much a working actor and didn't hesitate to jump at any opportunity that came his way, and therefore he took the role on a whim and knew almost nothing about the character or the story. The film's opening sequence depicting Esteban performing a satanic ritual was actually one of the last scenes shot, captured at dusk on Malibu Beach, the production given only 3 hours to shoot and forced to race against the sunset. Although they do not physically share the same space on screen, Mole and star Clint Howard did have one shooting day together for Coopersmith's possession by the ghostly priest, which was accomplished entirely in camera with the use of two-way glass, having Mole sitting just off to the side from Howard at a 45-degree angle. Evilspeak marked special effects house MEL's first major theatrically released film, and founders Doug White and Allan Apone saw it as a chance to showcase their talents, although they were given only 8 weeks to prepare. Evidently, however, they did their job a little too well, and in one instance a slight misjudgment on their part led to an embarrassing on-set moment for Clint Howard. When a possessed Coopersmith beheads one of his helpless targets, mind you, I was unable to determine which beheading it actually was, the dummy used for the shot was made too thick for the prop sword to slice through, therefore causing the blade to bounce off its neck. Undeterred, Howard practiced swinging with a sledgehammer in order to make wielding the sword seem effortless by comparison, and gloriously lopped off the head in a subsequent take. For the climactic massacre, real Russian wild boars were used, in addition to a fake boar head crafted by MEL, which was used for many close-ups involving boar-to-actor contact. Although Weston initially sought $10 million to make the film, it was produced for just $1 million and shot in only 3 weeks at what was then Santa Barbara Mission High School in the summer of 1981. A decrepit Catholic church in South Central Los Angeles had to be partially renovated for shooting the scenes in the cathedral. And eerily, just 3 days after filming, the church was burned to the ground. A vacant warehouse was also rented to house the satanic crypt and enlarged bathroom set for Miss Friedmeier's bathtub feeding frenzy. While it seemed obvious that securing the school was going to be a tricky endeavor as it was a religious organization and they were making a movie about the devil himself, according to Weston, the administration was blessedly more than happy to accommodate the production, which later received a charitable donation from Nike and Adidas in the form of various sports equipment and uniforms that were donated to the school after principal photography wrapped. The evil computer used by Coopersmith was actually an Apple II desktop, a cutting-edge machine in its time, and the production was aided in acquiring the expensive equipment by the Apple Club of Santa Barbara. According to Weston, the film may have been made for even less money if it wasn't for art directors Richard Costello and Dina Roth, who often used authentic high-end materials to construct the sets, which ballooned the film's budget. Reportedly, the duo also used burning rubber cement to ignite the on-set torches, which of course released toxic fumes upon the cast and crew. Composer Roger Kellaway found his start in television, having been credited on such classics as All in the Family and MASH, but rose to prominence with an Oscar nomination for his score to the 1976 remake A Star is Born. 1981 also saw Kellaway scoring another hell-themed horror movie in Jaws of Satan, and again found himself tapping into his inner darkness with Demon Rage the following year. Additionally, future film composer Gary Chang, now known for having films like Under Siege and The Island of Dr. Moreau under his belt, earned his first feature film credit on Evilspeak for his custom electronic music. Kellaway's choice to incorporate a choral element into the music certainly allows the film's soundtrack to stand out from its peers, with a majority of horror films at that time taking their cues from Halloween and Friday the 13th, and drives the film's more intense sequences by conveying urgency through their voices. Sadly, the composer's work has never seen an official release on any format.
Stanley Coopersmith, command you! Oh my God.
And all hell broke loose.
Unusually, the film premiered in Japan on August 22, 1981, distributed internationally by Warner Bros. Pictures, who were not interested in distributing the film domestically, and later saw a brief run in German cinemas that November. Evilspeak made its North American debut in Los Angeles and New York beginning on February 26, 1982, raking in over $500,000 in its first week in LA alone, where it played across 26 screens. While it would go on to show in all 50 states, distributed by the now defunct Marino Films, its stint in cinemas was short-lived, and most theaters only ran the film for 1 week. According to Clint Howard, Weston's original submission to the MPAA featured much more graphic violence and nudity than the theatrical cut, which included an extended death for Miss Friedmeier and more footage surrounding Bubba having his heart ripped out of his chest. Speaking of, Bubba's heart-wrenching death earned the first cut of the film an X rating, and the shot was axed from the original theatrical cut altogether. What's more, the opening quote from Khalil Gibran, a Lebanese-American poet and artist, was inserted after the fact by producer Silvio Tabet, who was a self-proclaimed Christian pacifist, not wanting the film to be misinterpreted as condoning its many acts of violence. Unfortunately, despite efforts over the years to locate the long-lost footage, it is believed that some of these additional minutes no longer exist. Weston later stated, quote, "We had to chop so much out of this film, it was just unbelievable," and claimed that the MPAA refused his submissions multiple times before allowing an R rating, the notoriously prudish organization even airing grievances over shots that amounted to only a few frames. Weston believes it was the film's independent status that brought so much unfettered censorship, and that had it been a studio film, it would have slipped by unscathed.
For Carrie, it will be a dream come true. For everyone else, it will be a nightmare.
Critically, the film was mostly viewed as a ripoff of Brian De Palma's Carrie, due to its themes of abuse and bullying and its overly supernatural revenge plot, complete with a bloody third-act reckoning. And, fun fact, the founder and high priest of the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, reportedly adored the film and heralded it as an exemplar of the then quite controversial religion. In 1984, 2 years after its theatrical run, Evilspeak made its US home video debut in the form of a standard VHS from CBS Fox Video, again providing only the censored version, and went on to see an international home release campaign, including in the UK, where it once again fell victim to heavy censorship.
You have been warned is the message to video retailers from the Director of Public Prosecutions. If you stock any of the 62 titles on a list circulated by Scotland Yard, you could end up in court.
We certainly saw in 1982 a series of videos which depicted mutilation, it depicted death, it depicted violence, which we felt enough was enough and took action to stop the growing spread of this form of violence.
By the mid-1980s, the controversial video Nasty Panic had swept Great Britain, and following its VHS debut on the British market, where it was distributed by Videospace, the film was subsequently banned for its excessive violence and satanic themes, its religious violations often cited as the primary reason it landed on the banned list. Nonetheless, an optimistic Eric Weston later said that he thought it was great promotion for the film. In 1987, the UK allowed a heavily censored reissue with over 3 minutes cut from the original print, including much of the gory special effects seen in the bloody climax, as well as satanic words and imagery displayed on the possessed computer. The film remained unavailable in its original form for over 2 decades, until 2004 at long last saw an official unrated and uncut special DVD edition from none other than Anchor Bay Entertainment, which not only presented the film in its theatrical widescreen format, but for the first time came with a feature-length audio commentary from director Eric Weston and star Clint Howard. It was also at this time that the BBFC granted the film in its intended uncut form to be made available on the UK's home entertainment market. 10 years later, in May 2014, it made its Blu-ray premiere from cult media distributor Shout Factory on their Scream Factory label, sporting an all-new 1080p transfer from a 35mm interpositive source, supervised and approved by Eric Weston himself, and included a host of cast and crew interviews and a new director's commentary. Other HD releases followed on the world market, including a 2016 3-disc German digibook from Wicked Vision Media and a Region B Blu-ray from the UK-based 88 Films featuring exclusive cover art. But the film has yet to hit the UHD market.
I conjure and command thee, O Prince of Darkness, in the name of him who spake, and it was done. Satan.
It's easy to write off Evilspeak as another forgettable 80s horror cash-in, or to view its satanic exploitations as a gratuitous gimmick. But its blending of two worlds, the supernatural and the electronic, gives it a hook so many other copycats of its time failed to manifest. And despite what many consider to be a slow and meandering start, the third act carnage is sure to satisfy any fan of bloody 80s horror. So the next time you need a break from the typical teen heroine, knife-slashing psychopath fare, power up that old dusty VCR in your basement, turn on Evilspeak, and let the possession begin.
Take this loving couple, for instance. I wouldn't get too fond of them if I were you, because they won't be around very long.
No. Please, no.
A pity. They seemed so nice. This is Billy. He has a big problem for such a little person. He can identify the killer, and the killer can identify Billy.
Death Valley, a name that strikes fear in some and adventure in others, sits in the northern portion of the Mojave Desert near the border of California and Nevada, and is considered, at certain times of year, to be the hottest point on the planet, and its long history of deaths and disappearances is never too far from one's mind when traversing its barren roads. Sometime around the mid-1970s, New York transplant Richard Rothstein and his family were vacationing with friends in the infamous stretch of desert and found themselves crossing an isolated highway when a strange vehicle sped up behind them. Although I imagine there was brief tension in the group, the other driver thankfully left the road. Afterward, however, Rothstein couldn't help but ponder what would have happened to his friends and family if the driver came with nefarious intentions. Enthralled by the idea, the former lawyer went to work on what evolved into his first feature film screenplay. Soon after, director Dick Richards caught wind of the project from an acquaintance of Rothstein's, and in fact, had been on the lookout for a film that would cross horror thriller off his bucket list. Richards was a former cinematographer who began his career path to feature filmmaking in 1960s and 70s commercial advertisement, and Death Valley marked his first film in almost 5 years. His previous being the 1977 studio period piece March or Die. But despite finding its director, the film struggled to secure financing, and so Richards turned to his off-and-on collaborator, producer Elliot Kastner, who he credits as the, quote, magician who made the film possible. Kastner and Richards struck a deal with Universal Pictures to produce and distribute the film, and Richards claims that his relationship with the mega studio was always pleasant and that there was no interference on their part whatsoever. With financing locked and cameras ready to roll, Richards next went to work on finding his cast, and knew that the film was going to live or die on the choice of who would play Death Valley newcomer Billy.
I got you.
Peter Billingsley had first crossed paths with Dick Richards some years earlier during a TV commercial casting call, and at the time had just shot his first appearance as the beloved Messy Marvin, who he reprised multiple times throughout the early 1980s.
Delicious.
Oddly, however, Billingsley received an introducing credit at the start of the film, despite already being credited on 3 previous features. Richards said that unlike many of his peers, the child actor was mature beyond his years and easy to direct, and also came from a great family, who were present on set at all times. Billingsley was also kept far and away from most of the film's more adult shots, and because he was a minor, the production was only able to use him for about 5 hours each day.
You heard me, I said keep playing.
As an aside, both in this film and 1983's A Christmas Story, Billingsley's character references the Old West outlaw Black Bart and dons a cowboy outfit. And Death Valley is the second of 3 films where he plays a character named Billy.
Hi, Billy.
And while the character obviously stems from writer Richard Rothstein's own experiences moving his family from New York to Los Angeles, Billingsley himself is also a New York native. For the role of Billy's mom, Sally, Richards wanted someone who could convincingly embody the sophistication of city life and the more homegrown qualities of rural living, and future Child's Play star Catherine Hicks fit the bill. Although Sybil Shepherd had initially been pursued for the part, but bowed out of the running due to scheduling conflicts. Hicks had recently received praise for her performance as Marilyn Monroe in the 1980 TV movie Marilyn, The Untold Story, and had just completed work on the short-lived CBS sitcom The Bad News Bears when cast. Edward Herrmann makes what amounts to an extended cameo as Billy's dad Paul, the actor having been a good friend of Dick Richards and really only agreed to do the role as a favor to the director.
We're gonna see the Grand Canyon from the ground up close. Really, it's one of the most spectacular sights in the whole world.
So is Central Park. Are we gonna spend our whole vacation here?
Decorated war veteran, champion boxer, and actor Paul Le Mat was Dick Richards' first and only choice to play Mike, Sally's childhood romantic interest, who takes her and Billy in following her divorce. In the early 1980s, Le Mat was still writing the success of George Lucas's American Graffiti and Jonathan Demme's Handle with Care, and had recently headlined the Oscar-winning comedy Melvin and Howard. So casting the in-demand star was no doubt a major win for the production.
Got it.
Billy, I could bust through this really easy, but it would cause a mess. So, what I could do is I can get the molding off.
Canadian actor Stephen McHattie had the steely gaze needed to play the film's knife-wielding antagonist, Hal, along with, and this is a major spoiler for those who've never made it to the film's ending, his equally diabolical twin brother Stu. Although subtle, McHattie played each brother with a different personality, Hal being much more playful than his stone-faced sibling. The actor was best known for portraying James Dean in the hit 1976 TV movie of the same name, and was actually a last-minute replacement for an unnamed star, Richards feeling he didn't suit the part, and ultimately cast McHattie because of his intimidating on-screen presence, although the actor was given just 1 day of rehearsal before filming commenced.
Listen, I want you to tell me everything you know about this medallion.
There was this man at the hotel. He's a waiter. He was wearing one just like it.
Is that right?
Richards and team also managed to round up a solid supporting cast, with the highlight being veteran character actor Wilford Brimley, here credited as A. Wilford Brimley, in the role of the local sheriff. Richards had already been a fan of Brimley when he was introduced to the actor not long before taking on Death Valley, and the pair soon formed a friendship which led to Brimley's involvement. Brimley, of course, went on to next appear in John Carpenter's cult classic remake, The Thing, and as I'll discuss, despite shooting Carpenter's film almost an entire year after Death Valley, both movies were released less than 2 months apart.
But I'd rather be dumb and be an old fussy fossil.
You going to eat these chips?
Fossil?
No.
Playwright Mary Steele-Smith makes one of just a handful of her on-screen appearances as Billy's unlucky babysitter. Angina Christian, Kirk Koskela, and Frank J. Cimarelli play our first victims, with Christian making her acting debut. This RV-based triple homicide is easily the closest the film gets to a traditional slasher movie, and was shot at an abandoned gold mine in the heart of Death Valley. However, Richards has made it clear that he did not set out to make a slasher film, or cash in on the craze in any way, and merely wanted to put together a solid old-fashioned thriller, and admittedly wasn't a fan of contemporary horror cinema, and instead credited Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho as one of his key inspirations. Fun fact: the The killer's ominous car was a golden 1958 Cadillac Series 62 sedan, with a license plate that read Hex 576, a not-so-subtle allusion to it being a curse on the community. And for those who care, the RV was a white 1976 Dodge chassis Fleetwood Southwind mobile motorhome with gold and yellow stripes. Principal photography took place across Death Valley from November through December 1980, shot entirely on location in order to save costs, and as a result, operated on an intensive shooting schedule, with Richards' filmmaking philosophy being, if they could fit a camera in it, they used it. Filming on location also allowed Richards and cinematographer Stephen H. Burham to capture a quote organic look for the film, while also maintaining a classic movie feel. Burham, of course, went on to gain acclaim for his work on such films as Brian De Palma's The Untouchables and 1996's Mission Impossible. According to Richards, the budget was set at around $3 million, although some sources listed as low as $1 million. But despite its financial restrictions, the opening sequence featuring Billy and his dad exploring the Big Apple was indeed shot in New York, also Richards' hometown, the director wanting to paint a sharp contrast between bustling city life and the eerie stillness of the western desert, hoping to underscore the fish-out-of-water element of the story. Due to the high expense of filming in the city, however, this opening segment had to be meticulously pre-planned and was shot in just 2 days. Then 28-year-old composer Dana Kaproff was hot off the success of 1979's When a Stranger Calls and 1980's The Big Red One when he began working on the music for Death Valley, and chose to utilize a traditional orchestral sound as opposed to the synth soundtracks popularized at the time. Consequently, the film bears a much more classical tone than many of its contemporaries, and certainly evokes the Hitchcockian vibe Richards sought. Unfortunately, no official soundtrack has ever been released for the film, and few details exist online as to the creation of its music. Editor Joel Cox, who went on to become known for his regular collaborations with Clint Eastwood, had been the protege of classic Hollywood editor Walter Thompson, and after Thompson's death in 1975, Richards reached out to Cox to edit his third feature film, Farewell, My Lovely. While not flashy, Cox does employ some fun edits, especially in the moment Mike learns of Hal's equally wicked twin. Although the televised version included a few extra minutes to pad the runtime, Richards has stated that there were no mandated cuts made to the film, and that the theatrical version is his complete vision. These additional moments included shots of Mike buying comic books for Billy at the airport, and a poolside assault by Stu, who spots Billy holding the golden frog necklace and attempts to drown him. Speaking of, the mysterious necklace which Billy finds at the RV has led to a variety of fan theories concerning its origin and meaning, but was chosen simply for its unique quality, Dick Richards merely wanting a visually memorable crime scene token.
You can do about it!
Death Valley. Quite fashionable as a last resort.
Despite having wrapped filming in late 1980, Universal Pictures inexplicably sat on the finished film for nearly 2 years, and therefore Death Valley did not see its worldwide premiere until January 22, 1982 in Santa Cruz, California. And even then, another 3 months passed before its wider North American release on May 7th. Richards has speculated that this delay was due to the studio waiting to find the perfect date in order to maximize profits in a crowded market. A preview showing was held in Las Vegas just ahead of its public premiere, where the film garnered a mixed reaction. However, Richards later saw the film with a younger crowd in New York and was reassured by their rousing reaction. The film also went on to have an international run, showing across screens in 10 other countries. That same year, the film arrived on the home entertainment market as a slipcase VHS from MCA Video Cassette. But this release never received any reissues, and the film went on to miss the DVD revolution entirely. And like so many obscure films of its era, Death Valley found its audience on television, with Turner's US cable station TBS running frequent airings. Fortunately, in December 2012, in honor of its 30th anniversary, a special collector's edition DVD and Blu-ray combo was released, again from Shout Factory, therefore marking its debut on both formats, and featured a first-time audio commentary by director Dick Richards. Alas, no other special features have yet been made available.
Things are very quiet in Death Valley these days. In fact, you can go for miles without spotting a corpse. However, if you're patient, something or somebody is bound to turn up.
The year after its release, writer Richard Rothstein went on to produce the long-running HBO horror anthology series The Hitchhiker, and co-wrote the script for the franchise-making hit Universal Soldier. And that same year, director Dick Richards earned an Oscar nomination for co-producing the Best Picture nominee, Tootsie. Therefore, it's safe to say that Death Valley is neither filmmaker's most popular contribution to cinema, but it is still a commendable addition to the mythical era of the 80s horror movie, even if its own director shies away from labeling it as such. But Death Valley is, regardless of intent, a very low-key slasher film, one that cleverly swaps the tired teenage virgin trope for an innocent young boy plucked from the comforts of the big city and left to fight for his life in an unforgiving desert, but at the same time is very much a story about family. And it is these two seemingly opposing elements that give it its edge. So let me know your thoughts on Evilspeak and Death Valley. Which of these two is your favorite, and let me know what other obscure cult horror films you'd like to see me cover next. And as always everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and click like below and feel free to share. And don't forget to find me on Patreon at /LeightonEversol. And of course, if you want to see more videos just like this one, go ahead and click subscribe.